All right, I'm in the garage with my 2013 Porsche 911. This is a 991 generation car, and the brakes squeak. And they have brand new brakes. This car has brand new brakes, front and back. So poking around on the web, I noticed that it's not uncommon for this generation to have squeaky brakes. A lot of people on the web say, oh, you got to drive it hard, you got to bed them, you've got to be more aggressive with the brake, and then they won't squeal. Which I find is somewhat true. If I'm hard on the brakes, they don't squeal. But this is not how I drive the car, nor most of you would want to have a car where you have to drive that way. So why would we take that as an answer from Porsche or anybody else? I mean, we have to get this car to drive without squeaky brakes. To me, the brakes are not unusually high performance. They're the standard brakes on a Carrera 2 base car. So to me, the car is more like a GT car than a cutting edge sports car. Where maybe you would have to live with a little squeal, but I want to get these brakes so that they're quiet. And my thought is, because it's a generation thing, it's probably related to the pad material. I think if it was like vibration on the pad against, the caliper piston or something like that, I think it would have been resolved pretty easily. So poking around again, looking for an answer. Some people have said that they had really good luck with these pads right here. So these are Centric Posi Quiet brake pads. Some people on the web seem to have good luck with them. I like the idea that they're not OEM and that whatever material they're using for pad is focused on trying to make them quiet. So maybe that will help make the difference. I'm also going to put some application on the back of the pad where it contacts the piston, and make sure that we've got some like anti-vibration type application there. So let's give this a try. I'm only doing the fronts. I'm almost certain that the noise is coming from the front. So let's do that. These pads, by the way, are very reasonable. I bought them on Amazon. They're under $100. So hopefully they'll do the trick, and I don't imagine that the labor time to do this would be very high, especially because the brakes were just done. So everything, all the fasteners were just loosened and tightened recently. So, all right, let's get started. Alright, so before we remove the caliper, we have to deal with a couple of things. Now, you got the pad wear sensors here that go to this cable, that go to this bracket. So we want to disconnect that cable so we can freely move the caliper off. But even when we do that, the caliper has a hard brake line. It's not flexible brake line here. So when you go to remove the caliper, it's going to want to move this bracket. So we want to remove this 10mm bolt so the bracket can freely move. So there's a few things we need to do. So I'm going to start here. Let's see if you can see this. Right here, this connector, I'm going to take my flathead and just kind of, I can't do this with, let me get a different flathead. Okay, let's see if you can see this. Take this flathead, do that, and I can remove this connector, okay? There's another connector here that basically works the same way. You want to put your flathead in. See if I can do it. I'm holding the camera like that. Yeah, the brackets, there it goes. Okay, you saw I pushed that forward. All right. So now I can remove that from the bracket. I've got that. I can remove. I can remove this from the bracket. All right, so I've got to work that off a little bit. I thought I could hold the camera and the flashlight and the tool, but I can't. So let's come back in a minute. All right, so what do we have to do now? We have to remove this 10 millimeter bolt to loosen up the bracket. Let me get a tool. So again, that brake line is on this bracket, so you can only move it so much. The whole assembly is going to move with it. Alright, we've got two T55 bolts holding the caliper on. They have to come off. Then I have to have some surface to put the caliper on so that I can get access to the pads. Alright, what I have is a toolbox on top of a hydraulic table that I can raise and lower, and then I'll just set the caliper down here. So let's take this thing off. Alright, and that's about how much movement you're going to get, because that bracket is just, you got the brake line attached, and there's just not a lot of freedom you got here, but it's enough to get at the pad. So let's see if we can show that. So these pads, I should be able to just walk them out with my hands here. Okay, there's one. Basically just sliding it to the center. Okay, so now they're both unclipped. I just need to be careful of the wear pad sensors. Alright, I got a problem because I need to remove at least one of these sides, which is easy enough. Let me show you how to do that. Alright, so I released one of these, and I can show you how I did that later, but now I can pull the other one through, and I'm trying to hold this at the same time. There it goes. So let me show you how these come out. You should just be able to pry them up. There's some metal wings here. See, they just go right in these grooves. Okay, so now we've got the pads out right here. So let's go look at these on the bench. Alright, these are the pads that just came out of the car. Like I said, they're new. This is the shim that was used. Now, this is the Centric pad, and I called tech support because I wondered whether I could use that shim, whether I didn't need it. They looked it up. They said it should come with a shim, and I'm not certain that it should. They didn't seem 100% confident, but they thought it should, and they wanted me to return the pads and get another package. Well, I'm going to just use this shim. I'm going to give it a try. We'll see what happens. I can always redo this, reach out and get the OEM, the Centric shims, if that's truly what's supposed to be on here. But what I am going to do is clean these up. There's a little bit of grease on there. The tech support woman said that there's no need for any application, grease or anything like this. I've used this in the past. This goes on the back of the brake pad. She said there's no need for any of that. So if that's true, and it works, then that means just the pad material alone is the problem with the squeaking. So we're gonna see about that. So let's clean things up and get ready to reinstall. Okay, hopefully you can see this. Here's the pad. This is gonna go in. That's where the wear sensor goes, and we're gonna do that after we get the pads in and the caliper mounted. But this basically is gonna go at an angle like this, and then pivot and slide onto there. All right, you see there's one. All right, let's try to get the other one in. Okay, we've got those. Now we're gonna get the caliper back up and start reconnecting things. I believe that's it. All right, so now let's put everything back together. We'll take it for a drive. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're back and the caliper's off, which can only mean that it was squeaking when I took it for a test drive, and that's what happened. Which kind of tells me it's not just the pad material. There's something else going on, probably the contact between the pad and the piston. If there's vibration, something like that, like something is causing this squeak. And so what I've decided to do is to remove the shims. So I'm putting these pads directly on the piston, and I think that's the way they should be mounted, even though the tech support said something different. But let's see what happens. I'm pulling the shims off. I'm going to take it for another drive, so let's see. All right, so I'm back from that test drive. Big difference. We're making headway here. So pretty much I didn't hear anything under normal driving, but I did try to induce it, because at this point I kind of know what to do to really, to make it loud with any other setup, like the OEM pad with shim. I can make it loud by practically coming to a stop and then lightening up on the pedal. And you're almost out of momentum at that point, but you can get a squeak. You could get a loud squeak from the OEM pads. I can still hear a little, even with these Centric pads when I do that. So if I just drove the car normally, I don't even know if I would hear the squeak. I mean, maybe in a parking lot to, without thinking, and I'm just trying to negotiate the car at low speed. But anyway, this is how close we are. So my thought now is I want to take the pads out again, and I want to put grease on the points where the pad contacts the bracket in the caliper. And I also want to grease those pins that the pad slides on, those where the holes in the pad slide onto. Now, this car got all new brakes before I picked it up, so all of that stuff should be clean, and that's why I haven't really dealt with it. But I think that's worth a try. So let me go through, and I'm going to do that, and we'll get that on video. Okay, so here's the plan. These are the OEM pads. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. So you can see a little bit of rub right here, little friction point, because the paint is gone there, and also here on this side. So that's where it comes in contact with that bracket in the caliper. So the plan is clean the bracket with brake cleaner, apply some grease right here and on this side, and then also clean those pins and apply grease on those pins on the caliper. and then put the Centric pads back on without the shim, and then take it for a drive. So I'm not gonna have the camera. You know what I'm doing. Let me get that done real quick and then go for another drive. All right, just got back from a drive, about 15 minutes or so. I tried not to go heavy on the brakes, because when you go heavy on the brakes, the problem seems to go away, like even with the OEM pads, at least until they cool off. So went light on the brakes. I tried to induce it right at the end of a stop, lighten up on the pedal, and didn't get it anymore. So I think the grease was where the contact point of the pad and the bracket, that was probably chattering or making some vibration right at that slow speed, right at the end of a stop, and the grease probably took care of it. So I'm really happy. It seems to be gone after 15 minutes of driving. Obviously, I'm going to put more time on it. I think putting more time on any brakes just helps it. It shouldn't make it worse in my case. So I would imagine this is going to be gone for good until the brakes need to be replaced. So anyway, that's my experience. Hopefully this video helps. If you guys have this issue, you know what I did. Give it a try. It worked for me. Good luck.